Hi, welcome to PJ Maybe. And this week I've been watching the Sarah Jane Adventures. All thanks to Daniel for giving me the recommendation. So, the Scottish Davros, thank you. I quite enjoyed it. I did watch the last couple of first two seasons last week, and I've been catching up on other things. Did a review of them, and I finished off the last three seasons of the Sarah Jane Adventures. And I must admit, it was a very good recommendation. So thanks again to Daniel. It's superb. Watching the last few episodes, I must admit, was quite poignant, especially considering this is the 10th anniversary of Liz Sladen's passing. And I must admit, I thought season 5, normally for a fifth season, it could start to go downhill. I actually thought it was picking up. I thought the way they were going, there was some nice tidbits that could get you dragged in. And I must admit, it was a shame it had to end. But I digress. There was some aspects of the final episode, I must admit, I was quite disappointed on. The final episode had James Dreyfus, who people remember from Gimme Gimme Gimme, and to me it was the Thin Blue Line. And the fact that Mina Anwar wasn't in that episode, I thought was a wee bit unfortunate, because the two of them were in the Thin Blue Line, and it would have actually been a nice. It would have been a nice homage to the fact that they had worked together in previous things. So it was, to me, it was just a bit of a shame that they didn't get a chance in Thin Blue Line. Another thing about the Thin Blue Line, I must admit, I thought was quite a nice function or nice thing was, I'm assuming at the time when Mina was playing the Maggie Habib in the Thin Blue Line, a pound a penny she didn't think she would have actually shared another acting gig with the likes of Rudolph Walker. And anybody that remembers Rudolph Walker, he's in EastEnders. He was in the Thin Blue Line. He was in Love Thy Neighbour. But I first remember seeing him in Pat Troughton's The War Games, Doctor Who's Patrick Troughton's Doctor's final season. He played one of the Union soldiers. And there later on down his career, he was working with someone who later on would work in an offshoot of Doctor Who, which was Mina. But it was just a bit disappointing. Mina's been in it all the way through. I must admit, my favourite character is Geeta. She's such a funny character. She's just so well played as the interfering mum, stuff like that. I just thought that she was very well played, and if they'd actually managed to have her in that episode, the with James Dreyfus, I think that would have been a nice wee tip of the hat to the fact that the two of them were in such a well-loved programme earlier in their careers. Anyway, let's go back. So this week I started my week with doing a review of Them. Them is the mother of all giant monster movies. A 1954 black and white giant ants. Sounds a bit crass, but in effect it was one of the first monster movies out. And although it was filmed like a B movie, Warner Brothers had put a lot of money into it, and it was just a very well written, well acted, tight production. And even now, it still is quite poignant. Obviously, the giant ants they were good at the time. Now you look at them and they just look plasticky or rubbery, and they just don't look the same as you would get nowadays with CGI. But at the time, they were very well done, and you could see the amount of money Warner Brothers had put into it. So that's a go-to for me. It's one of my favourite monster flicks, and it's something that I grew up watching. So I've really got a special place for that. Used to scare the living heck out of me, and I must admit, when I started watching it, I never thought I would have ever been back to it, but it's something I go back to quite a lot. So I must admit, them, if you like the monster genre, you like classic sci-fi, or you like a good story, them is the one to watch. After I'd finished with them, I basically got caught up in my YouTube stuff. So there was Cockney Spock, Scottish Davros. There was a lot I was watching. Blue Bonnet, and it was just fun stuff I was catching up on, watching all the stuff that they were doing. There was also there was a few Babylon 5 streams that I was catching up on, and I thought, I think I need to actually pick a topic and go with it from now on. So what I'm going to do, I'm still going to talk about what I watched, but what I'm planning to do is tailor my watching for the streams as we go along. So as of next week, it will be Red Dwarf. So I'm going to start Red Dwarf season 1. I'm going to see if I can get a guest on so we can discuss Red Dwarf season 1. And I'll do that every week, one season a week. So, and I plan to get Daniel on to actually discuss Red Dwarf later on in the middle of May. So might do a special one on the Red Dwarf up at that point, because it probably won't be a Wednesday. So we'll do a special one maybe over the weekend. Maybe get a couple of people on to discuss it. Anywho, my main watch for this week has been the Sarah Jane Adventures. And I must admit, I did have this in my collection for a long time, but I've just never got round to watching it. And I'm glad Daniel talked me into it. First couple of seasons, and the first season I thought was quite slow. It was the typical first season. It was introducing the characters and introducing the concepts. But I thought initially they overplayed the Slitheen. To me, the Slitheen are probably one of the worst characters out there. So any Slitheen story, they're never my favourite, because I think the fart jokes just go so far. But from season 2, and I don't know if it was a change of character to Rani, but I did think that the new character they brought in, Anjali Mahinder, is a very, very good actress, and she just seemed to fit into the role quite well. It's the same as Daniel Anthony playing Clyde Langer. He's he's a very good actor as well. I think the weakest actor, believe it or not, was Tommy Knight as Luke Smith. But considering the part he had to be this super genius, not understanding anything, I suppose it's not him. It's probably just the writing style for that character. Because in the 5th season, when he does appear here and there, he's a better rounded character, and he obviously it seems to sit better. But on the whole, the main characters within the show, obviously Leslie and Daniel, you've got Tommy and Angel. Is it it's Angli? Anjali Mahinder? I think that's the way to pronounce it, but forgive me if I get it wrong. I think those are very, very good. And even the supporting cast, like the mother and father, Rani's mother and father, Haresh and Jeeta, and I think Jeeta's my favourite of all the characters in that. And considering Liz Lane's, isn't it? I think that shows you how well she played. She could play against. She could play against it. So I thought she could play against the strong characters like Liz Lane, and I thought that was just so well done. And hey Daniel, how are you? And as I said earlier, I need to thank you for recommending it to me. So thanks. You've just got something else on my watch list that I'm going to rewatch multiple times just because I did enjoy it. But let's go back. So season 2 with the Sylvain, they were okay stories. I didn't think they were the best stories. I must admit, I did prefer anything that was not Sylvain. So I'm just going to actually get my list up just to make sure. I haven't. See, Daniel, I didn't know that about why Maria left, but I must admit, although Maria left and she appeared here and there, I'm assuming something similar happened with the Luke character, Tommy. I'm assuming he left for a week because he was in and out here and there. So it was a similar idea. But the stories in the second season, The Last Sontaran, such like The Day of the Clown, to me, the second season, the best story for that was The Day of the Clown. That was the Bradley Walsh. And it just goes to show that Bradley Walsh could be creepy if he really wants to. He can play silly, jovial, and he can play creepy very well because certain aspects of the Bradley Walsh's clown character were extremely creepy. And considering this is designed as a kid show, I thought they wouldn't have gone down how creepy it would have been. But they did, and it certainly worked because Bradley Walsh's episode or part in that was just superb. Even the later ones, like the Marker of the Berserker, where Clyde's dad comes back, I thought was quite good because the way they actually portrayed it taking him over, I thought it could have actually gone a wee bit slower to show the build-up of how bad it was going to get. But I think it shows that if you get everything you want, eventually you will abuse it. Because yes, you get something, tell somebody to do something, it's a laugh until you realise it can be serious. And if you never find out it can be serious, you could just go on and on and on and keep doing that. It was the same in season 3. There was one or two really good ones in that. And The Mad Woman in the Attic, which was Rani centric, I thought was quite a good one as well. It basically allowed her to shine. It allowed her to actually show how she could carry a show if she required. And I must admit, I quite enjoyed that. The worst one in that series, I must admit, was Mona Lisa's Revenge. The Mona Lisa and the way she talked just did not work. So you're getting someone who she was meant to be the embodiment of somebody from France 300, 400 years ago, or 500 years, I can't remember how long ago. In there, and then she's talking like a Cockney girl or an Essex girl or whatever. It just did not ring true at all. It just sort of took you right out of it. And I thought that was probably the worst part I'd seen in a long time. even the gift at the final episode on season 3 was quite good because it was playing a Sylvain story, but with a bit of a twist. And I thought it sort of improved a bit because they didn't have the fat suits, so there was no fart jokes, and it was a slightly better one for it. And even the wedding of Sarah Jane, where Nigel Havers was in it, I thought was quite a good one. However, it was telegraphed how it was going to end because you knew the Doctor was going to appear in it. Anything it seems to be, it can be quite a significant storyline. I had inklings the Doctor was going to pop up. And Daniel, that is terrible. Are you trying to say anything you're given, you would actually do? Just make sure you don't make us actually all give you praise. Know that we're doing that because you're actually mind controlling us, but oh, and I need to thank you again. I'm now up to 33 subscribers. That's me trebled my subscriber count since you recommended. So I'm a happy chap. And if I ever get to 100, I've got a couple of giveaways. Doctor Who or miscellaneous, depending on what I'll think about. I've got a couple of Doctor Who DVDs. I've got a couple of Carry On movies. I've got a couple of miscellaneous other movies that might be actually within the giveaway, but I don't know yet. So, if nothing else, I'll keep them. So if I ever hit a landmark like 101, 102, 103, who knows what I'm going to do? I don't. I never know what I'm going to do. I'm terrible for that. And the Rackweeds, yes, that was. It did sort of remind me of the. Was it not more? It reminded me a bit of the Vervoids from Doctor Who, but I've not watched that one in a good few years, so it might just be because it's a plant-based one. So, but the Krynoids, there has been a few Doctor Who ones where the plants took over, and I'm trying to remember the name of the one. It was the one with the one-eyed. I can't remember off the top of my head. Somebody maybe give us a shout out what the actual story was, because it's in my DVDs up there, and I don't want to dig them all out while I'm on stream. But I can show you the figure. So how's this? And I can't even find my figure, and I don't want to spend too much time because there's about 50 of them up there, so I don't want to actually hunt backwards and forwards. But white suit, black shirt, a mass of vines, and the one eye. Let me know what that one was. It's actually on my watch list for about 3 weeks from now. That's how far ahead I have to plan what I'm going to watch. So basically, remind me what it's called. Please, Daniel, you must have it on Classic. Come on. It's the one with the giant vegetable, and that's what it reminded me of. The Rackweed reminded me of that one, and I couldn't even remember the name, although I was looking it out, but I just forgot what it's called. I'm terrible for that. As I keep on saying, jack of all fandoms, master of none. And I'm getting old, so forgive me if I forget things. And hi, Enigmatic Joker, and thanks for joining us. And maybe you could help. What was the name of the story I'm thinking of? Come on. Anywho, I get distracted, and I can get distracted quite easily. So after talking about the Mona Lisa's Revenge on season 3, which I didn't. The only reason I didn't like it is because of Mona Lisa's accent and the way she talked. It just did not do anything. I thought, to me, it was just quite grating because she was just a wee chav, and it just didn't work very well. Season 4, I thought the Nightmare Man was not the best. I think maybe because it was a Luke-centric story, and I still didn't really warm too much to him. I thought it just didn't work very well for me. And it's the same as the Vault of Secrets with that was the one with the robots. It just that didn't work very well for me, because it's suddenly now you're, instead of just unit having this, you're getting all these different things actually trying to maintain and take the alien technology from Earth. It just seemed to add something else there. I would have preferred the Vault of Secrets to be a unit base that they had to get into, or something like that. And then you had the Death of the Doctor. That was the Matt Smith. Daniel, Nightmare Man is your favourite. Is that because you're having nightmares every time you think about going live? Especially when you've got me as a guest? I would have nightmares as well if I was you, but unfortunately, like Keegan, we differ on these ones, because Keegan is still a good character no matter what you say. Anyway, Death of the Doctor, that was the Matt Smith one. Basically, I thought that was quite good, although the Vulture, it just been a while. The Vultures just seemed a wee bit over the top, because you knew fine well as soon as they mentioned death and the aliens, I knew they were going to look like vultures. It was almost like a case of, okay, I'm a kid, I want to talk about things that actually look after the dead. What can I do? Oh, vultures always seem to actually deal with the dead, so there. And it did not surprise me when the aliens turned up and they looked like vultures. It just, that was the only part I had a niggle about. And the fact is, it was the unit woman, or the captain or major or whatever she was, who was helping. Considering the way unit seems to work, it just seems to be the Shanxi. The way it just seemed to be is they've usually got a, it seems to be actually twisting that even unit is corrupt, and I didn't like that aspect of the story. So although it was a good story all in all, I just didn't like the villains in it. The villains just The Empty Planet was quite an interesting one, and I knew from the start, as soon as you saw the other boy, you knew it was all about him. It was obvious. And for some reason, I don't know if it reminded me of Fortnite or something, just because of the way the aliens looked. I just found it more humanist than anything else. Although I liked the idea of the Empty Planet, and they were still trying to be nice by putting money in the till and silly stuff like that. The one I did like, I must admit, was Lost in Time. The 3 separate stories. Clyde during the Second World War, Rani during the reign of Queen Jane, and then Sarah Jane meeting the lady who was looking for the ghosts. I thought those 3 stories were really good independently. I definitely loved the story with the Rani and the Queen. That was very well acted right across the board. Even the woman that played the Queen, or the girl that played the Queen, because she was meant to be 16, the 2 of them were so well done. I don't think there was even one aspect of that story I thought was a bit silly. Yes, I could see the parts where they were Rani was using standard up-to-date speech like "shut up" and "are you crazy" and stuff like that, and the Queen sort of looking at her with a bash because telling her to shut up and stuff like that. It's just speech the way we would speak. Obviously, going far back, it's a bit different. However, I did think the story within Rani was the best of the 3 stories, with, believe it or not, the Clyde story being second best. with the Germans, although it was a wee bit silly, because if the Germans were planning to do that, why did they actually even dress in German uniforms prior to it? Because if they knew when the invasion was going to happen, why not actually stay undercover? And why did they set it up in a church? Why not set it up in that girl's house? So they go and visit her, sit in her house, nobody comes to visit. It was a wee bit silly with the set it up, but on the whole, I thought it was good, because same again, it's the acting from the Clyde character. He's very well done. Even the other boy, was it Charlie? It was well done, and I liked the fact that they wound up what happened to each of the characters, and obviously the Sarah Jane one with the ghost hunter, I quite enjoyed as well. The fact that the woman at the end came in right at that right time, and then she says she was told to turn up at this day, at this, she didn't say it this time, so how did you know she was right on spot of time? I would have expected it. George, not Charlie, sorry. Georgie boy, that's why he kept calling him it. Sorry, that's why I was thinking instead of Charles, it was Charlie. So it was Georgie, he kept calling him. The Where the woman turns up at the end to give the key, and it was right at the time they needed it, I thought was a wee bit thing. I would have preferred if she had an envelope that she hadn't opened, and it sparkled, and she opened the envelope that she'd been given by the woman earlier on. I thought that would have been a bit more interesting. This woman turning up to introduce herself to Sarah Jane and saying, "You might not know who I am, but here, this will explain everything," and then finding it and opening it and getting the key and then contacting the woman would have been a slightly nicer way to do it. But what do I know? I don't write stories. I just actually think about how the story would be better for me. And then the goodbye Sarah Jane Smith, didn't like it at all. Didn't like the stomach monster, shall we say. I just thought it was so obvious, so telegraphed, it just seemed out of the blue. And unfortunately for me, I would have preferred somebody less obvious. Maybe a character had already been in it and helped out Once in a Blue Moon over the series. Doing it, it would have actually been a bit more realistic. But this woman suddenly turning up, suddenly did this, and suddenly this happened, and suddenly that happened. And the only person that seems to put the two and two together is Clyde. Rani just seems to brush it off, and it's not a major issue, and it just didn't seem. It seemed too rushed. I thought they could have actually extended that a wee bit, maybe even brought the woman in a couple of times. You try to cancel me, Daniel? That is terrible. I'm no saying a word. I'm in a huff. Anyway, I'm going to go into the unfortunate half-cut season 5, which I must admit, the stories I thought were a lot better. Skye. I liked the Skye character. For a kid, she seemed to be able, she could act. She could act better than some adults on the TV at the moment could act. She's quite serious. The two-parter where she came in, Skye obviously starts off as a baby, comes up and she's a. I thought that was quite a nice way to introduce her, and yes, you would expect the Sarah Jane character to take her in. I didn't expect her. I must admit, I did expect her to go at the end of the episode, but the fact that she stayed, I thought, can be quite interesting, because there's somebody who has to learn, so she would have to learn all the Earth things. It's like when you watched Third Rock from the Sun, John Lithgow's character and the family. getting everything wrong every time. Getting everything wrong every time somebody said something it wasn't normal. And that's what the Skye character I thought could have continued. And with the Skye character, obviously just joining the show just before Liz Slaton passed away, I thought it was starting to get interesting. If they were thinking about doing a reboot, I can see this Skye, Clyde, and Rani, and Luke sort of taking over and continuing, because with Luke old enough to look after Skye, he would have to give up university and come home, obviously, because his mum passed. Even if they don't want to say that Sarah Jane has passed away, they could actually say she's missing, and the story is about how she's hunting. They're hunting for her. If they don't want to say about Elizabeth Slaton passing, but it would probably be better, and it would probably be more emotional if they did bring it back, to go down the route and just call it, even cut it down to the SJA, so they could still call it the Sarah Jane Adventures, although she's not there, but just abbreviate it to SJA, so people know what who it's in memorial to, and bring those characters that worked with the Sarah Jane character back and continue her work. I think that is a continuation of Skye's arc, and the arc of the rest of the characters could be quite a nice way to revitalise a franchise. And considering the tick box mentality of the TV just now, they've got plenty very nice, very well written, some of the greatest actors out there, I must admit. I think the Rani character, the Clyde character, the Luke character, not as much, but the Skye character, I think those ones had not necessarily a reboot, Daniel, a continuation. So not rebooting it, just continuing the story, maybe 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. They've come together as to do a memorial, and something happens and it all starts up again and they come back in. So I don't think a reboot. I'm not thinking a reboot of a reimagining it. I'm thinking of a sort of a spin-off, as you say, like the Sarah Jane was a spin-off of Doctor Who. I think it could work that way, as long as there was some continuation of Liz Slaton's legacy. And I think continuing her legacy is quite a good way to go. Consider the characters they had were very good characters. And I must admit, I would like to see those actors again. Definitely Clyde and the Rani actors. So Daniel Anthony and Angelo Mahinder. Sorry if I'm getting that name incorrect. I'm just terrible at spelling. I have problems with a surname like mine, and I still get problems with it. But the two of them are very good actors, and I think if you got the opportunity to relaunch it rather than reboot it or do a spin-off of it, I think that could be quite good. Even something simple like Rani and Clyde basically being married and continuing that way, and they help Luke and Skye, who continue with Sarah Jane's work, that type of thing. I remember, I've got too much on my watch list, never mind my listen list. I've got the Bobverse to finish off, and that's 4 books I want to re-listen to. I've got the Art Royal, which is 13 books, and I'm only halfway through that. I've got Ready Player One again. I listen to that at least once a year. That's a 13, 14 hour. And remember, I only listen to audios when I'm driving. And considering I'm working from home at the moment, and I do maybe drive one day a week if I'm unlucky or lucky, depends how you actually want to actually look at it. I don't have a lot of time for audios because if I'm sitting in front of my computer, I ain't listening to something, I'm watching something. And oh, by the way, Daniel, another 30 I picked up yesterday at the charity shop. And the charity shops were doing 10 for a pound. So basically 30 DVDs for £2.50. And I got some really good classics. No Doctor Who, no Sarah Jane Adventures, but I got some good classics. 2001: A Space Odyssey. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. There you go. That's how bad I am at watching TV and movies. But some of them I will be reviewing over this year if I ever get them onto my watch list, because I've still got a load. That whole shelf is this year's watch list, and I've got stuff above that now. So you can imagine my watching review list is getting quite long. And my next review will be, I have absolutely no idea what it'll be. It will more than likely be That's My Boy, which is Molly Sugden. And I'll be aiming to do that in between watching Red Dwarf. And Molly Sugden show is 3 series. So I will watch that over the next 2 weeks and get the video out by, hopefully, I'm on holiday for a week. So, and that's in mid-May. So I'm hoping to get it out just before that. So probably aiming to mid-May for getting the next review out. And after that, I'll have a whole week off to myself. My birthday week. So I'll take the week off for work. Don't want people to actually start giving me the dumps like somebody threatened the last time. So I have got a lot of plans over the next month. So I have. But Red Dwarf is going to be my priority for the next week. Anyway, I want to finish the Sarah Jane one. The next this one was The Curse of Clyde Langer. I thought was excellent. It's the same idea. You've had a Rani-centric one with the Mad Woman in the Attic. You had a Luke central one, the Nightmare Man. Now you've got a Clyde centre one. And I think this is probably, of the three, it is the best of the three. So I'm more centralised with the Clyde character. Although I was a wee bit disappointed how they left the runaway. I think it would have been nicer if they'd managed to find her or help her in some way, even if it was a case of she went to her and she says, no, anything I said wasn't true and I like what I'm doing. I don't know how they would have done it, but I think the way to do it, that was the only niggle I had with that one, the way it ended. They couldn't find her because she obviously thought she was deserted again and she ran away further. And then with the reason the dragon took them, where it's a removal company, and I just thought the wind up of the episode was a wee bit clumsy. But saying that, it was still one of the best episodes I've seen of it. And then The Man Who Never Was, the final episode, The Hologram Man, I thought was okay. And they obviously wound it up with because obviously Liz had passed away by then, but it was broadcast, so they obviously knew. And it had the memorial monologue at the end from her and saying how it goes on forever and ever. It's a nice way to finish it up. I thought was a very well done roundup. Although the story itself was not the greatest story, I thought the way they finished it And I didn't know the curse of Clyde Lyers, you're home this week. It's not something I would follow. I wouldn't know what week's meant to be classed as what nowadays. I don't follow it because I don't, believe it or not, I don't watch the TV. I don't watch the news. I don't read a paper. If it's not on YouTube or Twitter, which I don't listen to anyway or watch, I don't believe anything that's on it, I'm very sceptical. But I wouldn't have known what week was what. I couldn't tell you from one week to another what's being celebrated, memorised, memorialised, or whatever. Apart from stuff that affect me, my birthday, Christmas, Easter, anything I get stuff, I'm okay, I remember. But apart from that, I'm terrible at it. However, that was my impression of Sarah Jane Adventures, and I must admit, I was pleasantly surprised. Go back a bit. I have watched a couple of spin-offs from Doctor Who, and none of them. Well, the initial Torchwood, the first one or two were quite good. As soon as America got it, it just killed it. The Torchwood in America was just pants, and that's me being nice. But that was only the first episode or two. Was quite good. Then once they start changing it, as I said, America got their hands in it, and it suddenly wasn't a Torchwood story. It was more of a softcore porn story. Didn't like it. Not interested at all. To me, science fiction is science fiction. I don't like my lead characters falling in love. Even don't care. Literally don't care. Did it with Judge Dredd, the Sylvester Stallone movie. It's not one of my favourites, but the thing I liked about it is they didn't really have a romantic subplot. The character, like Mean Machine Angel, was in, looked fantastic. The character of Hershey was fantastic, even did the Hershey stand and superb. And the ABC Warrior looked fantastic. And apart from a wee teeny bit at the end where she goes up and kisses him in the cheek and he goes, I knew you were going to do that. But there wasn't at least a romantic subplot all the way through. It's the same as anything like that. If I was going to watch a romantic comedy or a romantic whatever, I would watch that. But in my sci-fi stuff, no idea why they put it in. I've been told that they put the romantic subplot in to attract women to it. And if you've got an action movie or a really strong sci-fi one, any of the women who are watching it for the same reason the guys are watching it, because it's bloody good sci-fi or a really interesting story. Believe it or not, you don't need to put romantic in it just to get the women involved. If you've got a good story, doesn't matter what, everybody's going to be involved. It's the same idea. If you have a romantic story that doesn't seem forced or taken as a subplot, most guys won't bother about if it's there or not. If it's a good story relating to it, not an issue. But for some reason, accordingly, all us guys just want to watch either sex, action, fighting, and all women just want to watch is two people being lovey-dovey, which is crap because we all like what we like. Me, love musicals, believe it or not. Favourite musicals are White Christmas is my go-to every year movie. Nothing to do with the fact that I grew up watching it while sitting with my mum, and that was my Christmas day. If Christmas doesn't have White Christmas, it's no Christmas. So I've got the DVC sitting there. I've got Calamity Jane, Doris Day, absolutely amazing. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, West Side Story. I love those movies, but most people would say that's no, the guys don't watch those type of movies. Rubbish. We watch what we watch. We enjoy what we enjoy. But the thing is, I'm glad the old movies are just nice old movies. I don't like movies that get updated to the point where they switch it around. So I was talking to somebody on Twitter about them. Imagine if it was redone today. It would be absolute junk. So if I'm recommending to someone to watch a movie, a nice old monster movie, watch them. Original black and white. If they ever do an update, don't watch it. Doesn't matter how great the CGI is or the animatronics or whatever. Watch the original in black and white, because no matter what they do, they're not going to have the tight storyline that they had in the classic. And it's going to be just a rehash and make it look worse, because it'll be all flash, all ants crawling all over the place, killing people, and there won't be the story about how they overcome it, because it'll be a guarantee. There'll be a click, somebody saved this, ta-da. But yes, Daniel, you are getting the blame as well for me enjoying Sarah Jane Adventures, and it will be on my playlist more nowadays, because I told you before, I had a few of the DVDs, and now those DVDs are going to be on my playlist. Could be a wee while, but me, sometimes I'll just drag a movie out. So if I was going to watch Sarah Jane Adventures in one day, what stories would I watch? I would watch the 3 centric stories. So the Clyde Langer, the Curse of Clyde Langer story, the Nightmare Man story, and the Mad Woman in the Attic. But I would also watch Sky. I would avoid anything with the Slitheen in it. And the ones with the Doctor in it, not bothered about. I must admit, if I was watching one with the Doctor in it, it would be The Wedding of Sarah Jane. That I enjoyed that story a bit better. So Daniel, you don't know what you're missing. Just because you go to the football grounds and sing Celtic songs doesn't mean you don't like musicals. You just don't like musicals that haven't got Celtic involved. But the Sarah Jane Adventures, I'm going to finish off shortly. This is just a wee quick one. Believe it or not, it's only been 10 minutes. No, that I know it's nearly 50 minutes, but I'm just actually, the way I ramble, I just lose track of time. I plan to finish off in about 10 minutes at the most. But Sarah Jane Adventures, I enjoyed. I enjoyed it because it wasn't too detailed. You could tell it was a kid's story because a lot of the stuff was telegraphed how it was going to happen, but they didn't treat the kids as if they're thick. So yes, some of the things as an adult you could see them being telegraphed in. However, they didn't automatically just give all the answers. You still had to think a wee bit about what was happening, or you would be surprised with what was happening, because not everything was telegraphed to the point where you knew it was coming up, and any kid watching it would know it was coming up. And I think if I was going to recommend it to anyone, one of my daughter's friends, she likes a lot of the stuff I like, mainly Spider-Man. She's a big Spider-Man fan. I love Spider-Man, so she always loves coming into my room because I've got all of my Spider-Man. And she has got the Spider-Man collection. She's got all her Spider-Man stuff. But she does like some of the stuff I like, so I would recommend, because her mum says she doesn't like Doctor Who. Her mum loves Doctor Who. I would recommend get her to watch Sarah Jane Adventures. Maybe she'll get into it that way. It is definitely geared more to a kid, so it's not all the big flash and monsters like Doctor Who is. It's not designed just to drag you in, whereas some kids don't like that aspect of it, just a wee bit too scary sometimes. So I would recommend Sarah Jane Adventures for someone who's got kids that don't like Doctor Who, but they want to get their kids into Doctor Who, maybe getting Sarah Jane Adventures. and getting that in there. So Sarah Jane Adventures as a gateway drug for Doctor Who. No, I'm recommending gateway drugs, but and hi, Sudoku24. I keep going to say Sharknado. I don't know why. It's probably because I first said that. And yes, I have joined the forum, and I've got a couple of things on my list to watch. And I mean, I've watched a few of the video ones, but I'd seen them on YouTube just prior to it. So that's because I wanted to finish the Sarah Jane Adventures before I go into anything else. And they're on my list for tomorrow and Thursday. Then I'm going to, over the weekend, I'm going to start Red Dwarf. So if you want to watch Red Dwarf, or you want to watch along with me, I'm not going to do a watch along on the channel, because 6 episodes, I want you to rewatch a few times, and I have rewatched them multiple times, but I want you to rewatch them, get all the extras in, and then I'm going to get somebody on to come in and talk about it. If you want to come in, drop me a line on Twitter or even on via the messenger, a DM on YouTube, and we could talk about getting you on to discuss Red Dwarf. Because Daniel, middle of May, will go on. If you've not watched Red Dwarf, I'm going to have words with you. And if you no got Red Dwarf, I'm going to have bigger words with you, because I'll get you a copy so you can watch it somehow. Even if it's a case of give you the YouTube channel so you can go and watch highlights of it, you need to watch some Red Dwarf. Season 1, perfect start point. You need to watch Red Dwarf, Daniel. However, next week my plans are season 1. So tomorrow Thursday, tomorrow and Friday, my plans are to go over the forum, the Doctor Who forum, and actually look at all the classic stuff. Have a look at some of the newer stuff, so I'm not bothered about that. I'll stick with the classic stuff. Be classic and read old, but remember, they're no painted on. That's actually all real. I'm getting that all, Jess. So, okay, where's my videotapes? That'll teach you. So the forum stuff from Sudoku24, I'm definitely going to be looking at them tomorrow and Friday. Starting on Saturday, I'm going to be going over season 1 of Red Dwarf. Next Wednesday, between 8 and 9 o'clock, I'm hoping to go for 8, but I realise that all you guys have got your channels running at this time, and I don't want to clash with them because I'm too busy trying to watch them. So I can't actually watch your channel and live stream because I would be too distracted by reading all the comments. So, Red Dwarf for next week. I'm aiming for about 9 o'clock for a couple hours. Maybe if it's too late for people, maybe 8 o'clock for a couple hours, just to talk Red Dwarf. And I might even show you the pictures of me dressed up as Rimmer. Scary. No beard, glasses, still baldy, but dressed up as Rimmer. Although I've actually got my own name on it, and I'm a senior technician because my daughter was dressed up. She's got her name on it, and she's a junior technician. But that's a digression. We basically like to dress up as my daughter's into Red Dwarf as well. Been talked to Chris Barry, got the pictures with Chris, and I've met them all except Danny and Craig. And Danny did a birthday video. My wife got me a birthday video for last year, and on one of my playlists you'll see the Danny John Jules hi to me and takes the absolute mickey out of me because he doesn't say I play Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons. He says I sit in my dungeon watching Dragon's Den and doing magic. It basically, he takes the absolute rip out of me by just mentioning Doctor Who. Instead of telling everybody I like Doctor Who, he says he's a doctor who likes to sit in his man cave. So he takes the absolute rip out of each of my interests, which I found was funny. But that's Danny John Jules. He's a funny man. So getting ripped by Danny John Jules was fantastic. So if you want to see it, check it out. But I've met all the rest. I've even met Chloe Annette. She's a really nice. Was never a big Kochanski fan, but I have met her, and she is such a lovely woman. Robert Llewellyn was the first one of the lot I met, and I spent ages talking to him. Got the video. He came up and taking the piss out of me while we were trying to get a video working, because somebody was taking a video of us and got it wrong, and he was taking the mickey and basically calling him a diddy for actually getting it wrong. So Daniel, you admit it, you like Coronation Street. That's where you like Craig Charles from. I know. You've mentioned Robot Wars, but I think it's a distraction. You're a big Coronation Street fan, so don't let us know. Chloe Annette, I met her, must have been probably about 3 years ago now, because I keep forgetting last year was a complete no-go. So it's probably 2019, 2018 at the earliest. So, but I did meet her. I was dressed as in my Rimmer outfit and got the pictures back to back and a wee chat. And she's a really nice lady, I must admit. But then again, the ones that I've met, like for instance, Robert Llewellyn, Chris Barry, Hattie Hatridge, and Norman Lovett. I've got them all signed. I created a JC bag and got them all to sign it. I've got 2 spaces left for Craig and Danny. So if they ever come up to Glasgow, that's where I'm going. But what was I saying? It's just I remember I read the one about Cyberzone. I've not heard about that for ages. But anyway, Chloe Annette is a really nice. Robert Llewellyn was the first one I met, and I spent ages gabbing to him. Chris Barry was superb. Me and my daughter turned up. We got a salute, and he was talking to my daughter, telling her how she looked great. And then when we were in the conference hall, he was doing a speech and we were asking questions. Stood up, and I even got a salute again, and he remembered exactly who I was. And you're talking about it's a couple of hours after all these people had been up to visit me still, because the old guy with the senior technician and my daughter with the junior technician, he remembered both of us, and he basically gave the 2 of us a salute again. So all in all, I was over the moon. But my daughter, who's normally quite shy, she basically got up and asked a question just because he made her feel so at ease. Superb. Norman Lovett, I gabbed to him for about 15-20 minutes. I must admit, he's just such a funny guy. I have seen him on the stand-up circuit, so I knew he was a funny guy before Red Dwarf, and I'd seen him between and after, so I knew his dry humour, and it's very similar humour to a lot of people in my family. So I'm used to it, so I really liked him. Hattie is really nice, but I preferred Holly to Hilly. So although Hattie's really nice and she's such a lovely lady, I preferred my Norman Lovett's Holly to Hilly. Holly. Depends what episode or season. I have met Dingy McDonald, Duncan McDonald, the one that played the captain. See, I hate it when that's this. I know his name. I can't believe it. I do that a brain fart, and the name's right there, and then suddenly this disappears, and it will pop up. I know it will. But let's see what else she's been saying. Cyberzone. No seen that for a long, long time. And yes, nothing to do with the BBC owning Dave. The fact that Rob Grant and Doug Naylor are basically sued each other as a court case. I think that signed the death knell for Red Dwarf. Although they're saying they're hoping to Disney, I think that's exactly what it is. And I think the reason why Red Dwarf was one of the last bastions is because they never box ticked. They had great people playing great characters and they never mentioned anything else. So you had Craig and Danny, two coloured actors, two of the funniest characters on the show and two of the best characters. One a slob and one super cool. Two of them were fantastic. Then you had two other guys because there was no females on it. Nobody saw it as an issue. Nobody brought it up as an issue. Even when she came back, the only issues they made of it is the fact is these characters just didn't know how to deal with a woman because they'd been on their own for such a long time. But the Crichton with Kochanski was funny. But I think it was a bastion of sanity was because they played it as four guys going through space, or five guys if, when Crichton and Holly were both there. But in effect, I think that's why it actually is so well done, because people didn't have an issue. No matter what people tell you about the state of TV in the bad old days, Red Dwarf was popular then. It's as popular now, if not more so. Yet the cast hasn't changed. So it's now as if they've suddenly brought in cast members to tick boxes. They had the best characters playing the best characters around. And you can tell how well the characters play. Don't watch Coronation Street, honest, no matter what people say. But Craig Charles, he was a stand-up poet, comedian. I remember him back in the day when he was on Saturday Night Live, coming up and giving his poems, which were, to me, very radical, very hippie-ish and sticking it to the man. Then you had Danny John Jules, started off as a dancer. He was in the Little Shop of Horrors, only a small part. He went on to do things like Death in Paradise, fantastic, until he left. Then it was okay. But the first 5-6 seasons, best show around. Still watch it, but I don't find it as good because all the characters from the beginning have mainly changed. I think there's one or two in still, but on the whole, I prefer the first 5 seasons, maybe the 6, because Danny John Jules was one of the mainstays. He was good in it. The guy who played Fidel was really good in it, and he got a promotion away. So in effect, he left, and they brought in the commissioner's daughter. And then you've got obviously the commissioner, Don Warrington. He played in Rise and Damp. Classic, great actor again. The fact that they had such great character actors in Death in Paradise, and Danny John Jules fitted in perfectly because he was a great actor. Yes, he played a Dwayne. Not Dwayne, he played Dwayne. Different spelling, 16 words. And then you had Chris Barrie, who was a comedian. He did Spit and Image. Then obviously after Red Dwarf, he did British Empire, and he did a load of other stuff. And he's still as popular now as he was back then. Then you've got Robert Llewellyn. Must admit, it's the first time I'd ever seen Robert Llewellyn in, but I've watched Scrap Heap Challenge and some of the other stuff, and it's really good. Same as Chris Barrie, looking about all these the big earth movers and stuff like that. I think the 4 characters, and Norman Lovett. I knew Norman Lovett beforehand, and I find him very funny. So when they had the 4/5 characters in, to me it was a fantastic show, and it needs to be revisited often and with as many people as possible. So what we need to do is we need to go on season 1 this week. By next Wednesday, I'll get a guest on. If I can't get a guest on, I'll mug one that's walking past the house, drag them in and make them sit and watch Red Dwarf before we go on. Or I'll ask, one of the two, whatever's easiest. But I digress, because I wanted to finish 5 minutes ago, because believe it or not, my tea's gone cold. It's only been sitting there for an hour, so what can I say? I need a hot cup of tea. I think when Hattie took over from Norman, yes, they reduced their role, but they didn't just reduce it because of that, because they had the Crichton character. The Crichton character could do the explanations that the Holly character could do, but it was mobile, so they didn't always, they could take him off the ship and they still got the explanations. So it meant they could actually be off the ship and do things without having to CGI or whatever the Holly into the watch all the time, or have him appear in other places. That's why the Holly character got diminished, is because they had a more mobile talk to the audience character. It wasn't necessarily just because they changed over. It was on its way of going that route. I think that's why Norman wanted to leave, because he felt as if his character was being diminished, because they brought in the Crichton character, and they brought in the Crichton character to allow the more mobility, so they could do outdoor scenes without being tied. So if they did a lot more outdoor scenes, Norman Lovett wouldn't have been in it, because they would have had to CGI him into a watch or something if they had a bit to speak to him. So it would have been a lot less time. And when they were filming it in front of video live audiences, they would have had to say, right, imagine this is on that, so it's not as funny and stuff like that. So I think that's why Norman left and Hattie got the part. It wasn't a case of they reduced it because they brought her in. They were already reducing it, and they brought her in because Norman was leaving because of it. Have I seen Rock and Chips, the Only Fools and Horses prequel? I have not. The nearest I've got to a Only Fools prequel was the one I was telling you about, which was Lucky Fella. David Jason, not a great one, and my review's on my channel, have a look at it. However, they said it was a prequel, as in it was a setup for Only Fools. The two brothers staying with a family member, one was a wimp and one was but this was, instead of being a go-getter businessman, he was a woman's man, a lady killer, and David Jason played the Rodney character. That was the only similarity to Only Fools, but I'd never heard of Rock and Chips. I will look out for it. eBay's great for stuff like that. Somebody can always get as the DVD. And you know what DVD set I'm trying to get my hands on is Out of the Unknown. 1960s, 1964 to I think 63. They did a series called Out of the Unknown. It was basically classic sci-fi by the BBC, believe it or not, and they were superb. However, most of them are gone. So there's about 5 seasons left, and there's certain episodes are gone for good. Same idea, they got this Doctor Who treatment, they just got recorded over. So unfortunately, that's on my list for next purchase, but it's about 40 quid. So it's no cheap. So I'm still looking around for a cheaper version. Hence the reason why I went down to the charity shop just in the off chance and bought 30 discs for £2.50. I was really lucky. And I got Vida Zen Pet, the whole season on disc for 50p. How is that for a going to charity shops? You want to spend your money? Spend them in charity shops. Any charity shops you can find, go down. Some of the charity shops, they sell the DVDs at quite an expensive one. It's one of the charity shops I was in Saturday. No, tell a lie, it was Tuesday. I was off Tuesday. So went to the charity shops, and one of them were selling the DVDs like £2-3 each. The problem was there was a load of classic movies in there I wanted, but I could buy 20 DVDs for the same price as one of those DVDs. So I went for the quantity over quality. But next time I'm down, I might pick one or two of them up. £2-3 for a classic movie is never wrong. But fingers crossed, I'll get there. Picked up Black Books, one of my favourite ones from back in the day. I might even do a review of that one of these days, but that's probably at least 6 months down the line. I'm hoping before I get to the Black Books, I'll have my new computer up and running, and I don't have a background hum. That's the fan on my laptop. That's what that noise is. Daniel, you did hear it the last time. That's what it is. Fawlty Towers, yes. Fawlty Towers all the way. Sitting on my shelf, watched it, and I plan to rewatch it a couple other times before I actually do a review on it. But maybe after the Red Dwarf and going to Fawlty Towers, and Daniel, there you go, you can come in and actually talk Fawlty Towers for the May one, if you would prefer to do that than Red Dwarf. If you not got a copy of Red Dwarf, we'll just watch the 2 seasons of Fawlty Towers, then we'll gap about it in the mid-May. That gives you 2 weeks to watch it. Gives me 2 weeks to watch 3 seasons of Red Dwarf, or 2 seasons of Red Dwarf and Fawlty Towers, and do a movie review. So we should be able to keep up with each other. But then again, I mean, I'm married, I'm working, I've no got a life. This is my life, this room, and I keep belting it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, and all those who fall in between, I'm going to finish up there because I'm going to go for a cup of tea. And next week, Red Dwarf here, Wednesday. The week that the week watch list, I'm calling it this week's watch list, and it will be Red Dwarf for next week. So if you like Red Dwarf, please tune in. And what I'm going to do is I'm thinking about doing this, but you'll need to let me know if it sounds bad. Obviously, my sign off at the moment is, remember, I'm not old, I'm classic. I was thinking of, for this week's watch list, how about this one? One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no cheers, no anxieties. Just go forward in your beliefs and prove me that I am not mistaken in mine. Goodbye, viewers. Goodbye, my dears. Is that just too corny? The great William Hartnell's speech when Susan leaves. I think that is a good way to sign off, but maybe when I'm doing a Doctor Who review, that will be my sign off. So what do you think? Red Dwarf next week, and I'm definitely going to finish. And thank you, Daniel, Sudoku24, and I nearly deleted that, Enigmatic Joker, for joining me. And thank you for not slagging me too much. And remember, I'm not old, I'm classic. PJ Maybe out.